As Donald Trump potentially gears up for his second term as president in January 2025, you must understand the grave risks and threats that a continued Trump administration poses to the stability of American democracy. There are mounting concerns about the actions he, along with his powerful coalition of supporters, the fanatical MAGA movement, the right-wing Heritage Foundation, extremist far-right militant organizations, those who are anti-democratic but pro-Trump media empires, various religious fundamentalist groups, wealthy pro-Trump elites, and even environmentally destructive corporate interests may undertake. These actions could significantly and irreparably undermine the very foundations of American democracy, from election integrity and environmental protections to journalistic freedom and economic stability. Specifically, there are serious fears of repeating or even escalating blatant abuses of presidential power, such as obstructing justice and brazenly misusing official authority. Additionally, allegations of systematic voter suppression and election interference could become shockingly commonplace, placing the future of free and fair U.S. elections in grave jeopardy. Concerns also abound about conflicts of interest, emoluments violations, and other financial crimes that were so prevalent during Trump's first term. Without the constraint of re-election concerns, these corrupt practices could intensify to unprecedented levels. Worst of all, there are even disturbing indications that Trump and his loyalists may attempt to abolish the 22nd Amendment, which limits presidents to 2 terms, in a brazen power grab to install a de facto authoritarian regime. This comprehensive video report will meticulously outline the full scope of the potential crimes, abuses, and anti-democratic actions that a second Trump term could unleash across the political, legal, economic, environmental, and social spheres. The future of American democracy hangs in the balance. Let's start with democracy. And what from the Democracide Law, aka crimes against democracy, they will break. Erosion of democratic norms. Under a second presidential Trump administration, there is a grave risk of power consolidation within the executive branch, which could severely sideline the critical system of checks and balances. This could involve systematically replacing nonpartisan civil servants across the federal government with loyalists who adhere strictly to the extreme MAGA ideology, while also threatening the independence of the judiciary through overt political influence, potentially protecting Trump's allies and cronies while punishing any perceived critics or opponents. Suppression of political opposition. Trump's ominous hints at prosecuting and persecuting political opponents raise grave concerns about the potential for widespread harassment, intimidation, and even imprisonment of dissenters under a second term, a chilling tactic reminiscent of authoritarian regimes. Coupled with escalating efforts to control media narratives that are critical of the administration ruthlessly, these actions could severely restrict free speech and press freedom, further consolidating the administration's grip on power at the expense of core democratic principles. Voter suppression. New laws could disenfranchise marginalized communities under the pretext of preventing election fraud, including stricter voter ID laws that make voting more challenging. Interference in electoral processes. There may be attempts to manipulate how elections are conducted, potentially undermining legitimate electoral outcomes. Use of state resources for political gain. Concerns arise that federal agencies, such as the Department of Justice, could be weaponized against political opponents, turning state resources into tools for personal vendettas. Now, let's move on to journalism and what, from the Journalcide Law, aka crimes against journalism, they will break. Censorship and media control. There may be efforts to suppress critical reporting and promote pro-Trump narratives, echoing past actions where Trump sought to influence outlets like Fox News. Legal repression. Libel and defamation laws can be used against journalists and media organizations that publish unfavorable stories, chilling the press. Surveillance and harassment. Increased surveillance of journalists, particularly those investigating government actions or Trump's policies, could occur. Promotion of misinformation. State-sponsored misinformation campaigns could proliferate through pro-Trump media channels, undermining trust in legitimate journalism. Violations of journalism. Ethics. Systematic undermining of factual reporting may occur, prioritizing narratives that align with Trump's agenda over journalistic standards of accuracy and fairness. Up next is ecology. And what from the Ecocide Law, aka crimes against the environment, they will break. Dismantling environmental regulations. The administration could weaken key protections such as the Clean Air Act and the Endangered Species Act, threatening biodiversity and public health. Promoting fossil fuel development. Expanding oil and gas extraction on federal lands could lead to significant habitat destruction and increased greenhouse gas emissions. Reducing protections for public lands. Repealing the Antiquities Act could open protected lands to exploitation and development, endangering sensitive ecosystems. Encouraging pollution and chemical use. Loosening regulations on toxic chemicals could increase pollution and harm human health and wildlife. Ignoring climate change. There may be an active effort to undermine climate research and dismiss the threats of climate change, which could stall progress towards sustainable energy solutions. Next up is religion. And what from the Religicide Law, aka crimes against religion, they will break. Religious persecution. Systematic oppression of religious minorities, particularly those not aligned with conservative Christian values, could escalate under the influence of the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. Manipulation of religious beliefs. The rhetoric surrounding MAGA could distort religious teachings to justify discriminatory policies against marginalized groups. Desecration of religious symbols. Aggressive stances against perceived woke ideologies could lead to actions disrespecting symbols of faith that do not align with conservative Christian beliefs. Forced conversion and coercion. Policies promoting a singular interpretation of Christianity could lead to coercive practices aimed at converting individuals from other faiths. Legal and institutional discrimination. The rollback of protections for LGBTQ+ individuals and diversity initiatives could create a legal environment discriminatory towards inclusive religious practices. And finally is the economy, and what from the Economicide Law, aka crimes against the economy, economics, they will break. Fraud. Deceptive financial practices, particularly in securities and tax-related fraud, could increase. The administration might manipulate financial regulations to benefit wealthy supporters and corporations. Tax evasion and avoidance. There could be a push for aggressive tax avoidance strategies, including using offshore accounts by wealthy individuals and corporations to evade taxes, diminishing public revenue. Corruption. The potential for corruption may rise through the abuse of power for personal gain, including favoritism in government contracts that benefit Trump's allies. Market manipulation and rigging. Policies favoring specific industries or companies could lead to unfair market practices, particularly in sectors where Trump and his allies have vested interests. Environmental crimes. Policies prioritizing corporate interests over environmental protections might lead to violations of environmental laws, including deregulation that allows harmful practices. Cybercrime. The broader MAGA movement may engage in cyber activities, including hacking or data breaches against political opponents, undermining democratic processes. Sanctions. Evasion. Efforts to strengthen ties with certain foreign governments may lead to attempts to bypass international sanctions, finance illicit activities, and undermine global economic stability. In conclusion, the convergence of the potential crimes outlined under a second Trump presidency raises significant concerns about the future of democracy, journalism, the environment, the core values of religion, and economic integrity in the United States. The behavior patterns suggested by past actions and proposed policies reflect a troubling trajectory that could lead to severe violations of fundamental rights and protections. Finally, let's not ignore civil rights violations. Policies that disproportionately affect marginalized communities could deepen societal divides. The potential for increased human rights abuses is alarming. While there is significant concern about the erosion of democratic norms, suppression of opposition, and various other actions that could heighten tensions within the country, predicting the exact trigger and outcome of a second American Revolutionary or Civil War is highly speculative. Historical events like civil wars are influenced by a multitude of complex factors beyond just political corruption and abuses of power. Understanding these risks is essential for informed activism. The potential crimes and violations described could certainly lead to heightened political polarization, protests, and potentially even violent conflicts. However, the United States has robust institutions, a strong legal framework, and a history of resolving political disputes through democratic means. To prevent such extreme scenarios from unfolding, the focus must be on upholding democratic principles, engaging in constructive dialogue, and ensuring the rule of law and democratic norms are maintained. As the political landscape evolves, vigilance and advocacy for democratic norms, environmental stewardship, journalistic integrity, economic fairness, and the protection of the core values of religion will be critical in safeguarding the principles that underpin American society. With diligence and a commitment to these core democratic values, our country's future can be protected, even in the face of such grave concerns. Stay vigilant, stay informed, and make your voice heard. Thank you for watching.